You seen this? My name is James Sanders. I'm the chairman of the 7-Eleven committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is now 3 minutes after 6. And on our agenda, let me think roll. Right. Mr. Rentila is absent and ill, so he will not be joining us today. Miss Ilana
Here.
Miss Sigler,
Here.
Mr. Gosney,
Here.
and Miss Torres.
Here.
Thank you. So, and Liz Garay is absent. Okay. Now I go through the traditional readings. The public participating in committee meetings. You can attend in person or by Zoom. The meetings are also broadcast via Zoom by the following link: https://wccusd.zoom.us. And it looks like I 961146232120 or by telephone at 669-444-9171. And our webinar ID is 961-1462-3120. The public will have different opportunities to address the committee. The public can address the committee during public comment and before an action or discussion item. The public can provide public comment in person through the Zoom app and by telephone. Public comment will last approximately 10 minutes. The time allotted for each speaker is 2 minutes. If you are attending the meeting in person, you will need to submit a request to address the board form to indicate your desire to speak during public comment on a non-agenda item before the item begins on an agenda item. If participating via Zoom, you will need to raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9 if accessing the meeting by phone. No yielding of time or substitution of speaker is permitted. The public will have an opportunity to make public comments on agenda items after the presentation for each discussion and action item. The time allotted for public comment on each item or discussion item and items not discussed on the agenda will be no more than 10 minutes and 2 minutes per speaker. Due to the Brown Act, committee members cannot discuss items not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in public comment. Special accommodations upon written request to the district, disability-related modifications or accommodations, including auxiliary aids or services, will be provided. Please contact the facilities office at 510-307-4545 at least 48 hours in advance of meetings. So we've had the call to order, and now comes the land acknowledgement, and I will do my best to pronounce things correctly. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Parkin, Ohlone peoples, and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. Labor and recognition. I acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls on the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. I remember that Black and brown people are born and died working this land against their will for generations. I also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in building what we refer to as the United States. And the author of this is Dr. Rochelle Rogers Ard. And now It's time to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Sigler and seconded by Ms. Torres. If there are no objections, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Moving on to item A4, approval of minutes of July 16, 2024. The second part in the packet today, and it's approximately 8 pages long. I made a few corrections on the first page, and I'd like to address also an item on page 3. Any other corrections or comments to be made on the minutes? I'll give you time to read through. Zoom meeting at 6:15.
No, I want to.
I'm just reading it. Mr. Gosney, on the agenda for, July 16, under meeting location, there were two locations. And one of the locations was in Salt Lake City. 844 East Sago Avenue, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84102. It's my understanding that that location had to be there so I could participate in the meeting. And so the minutes should reflect, instead of saying, just the location of the facilities building, that it should be, there should be an and that address, and then under where it says present, instead of remote location, that location should be given.
Yeah, I thought that, I mean, I have no problem on the second part, remote location. My concern is, I thought that the only requirement for where you were had to be in the agenda and not necessarily in the minutes, where the meeting itself was held here.
Well, except you're reporting meeting location.
Yeah, so no, again, the meeting was here and not, I mean, you were attending it in Utah. Perhaps our attorney can address that. I mean,
I'm
I just,
checking right
I
now.
want to get it right, but I don't know what is right.
If it was, well, was it indicated in the agenda or not?
Yes,
It's right here.
Okay. But now you're I'm sorry, but it's in the minutes and you're asking if it should be reflected in the minutes?
It was on the agenda. But in the minutes, it's not given, and it's simply with respect to my location, it says remote location.
And that should be sufficient. I mean, again, the minutes don't have to necessarily reiterate the exact address, because the agenda is a public record already, and is already indicated.
Okay,
It's not a fatality at all in the minutes. It would be redundant. You could put it in if you want, but it's 100% okay with not having it in there, because the agenda was notifying it.
okay, thank you.
yeah, where it says remote location, if you tell me what you want there, I'll be more than happy to amend that.
It's on the agenda, it's on the agenda from July 16th.
It would help me if you,
I'll read it to you.
thank you, that way I can write it here.
Ready?
Yes,
844,
all right,
E is in east.
Yeah.
Sago, Sego.
Right.
Avenue,
okay,
Salt Lake City,
all right,
Utah, UT,
Mhm.
84102.
all right, thank you.
And, on page 3, as I recall, it reads, with Mr. Sanders seconding, Mr. Nawanda made a motion to approve the minutes of July 25 submitted by Mr. Gosney with the following text to be struck through. I don't recall it struck through, but anyway, to be struck, which was Chair Sanders suggesting Mr. Gosney not have the authority to claim that he was a representative of the public. That was a comment that you put in there, and I went to Robert's rules and to deal with strikeout. And on in section 12:8, it says second process to strike out words, to strike out a paragraph. And in the footnotes, it says, it should be noted that the application of the word delete to any form of amendment is not a preferred parliamentary usage, but the shortened expression to strike is acceptable. So what was intended by my comment was that those words simply shouldn't appear, that they should be deleted. And it's just it's an opinion, it's a difference of opinion, something that you and I exchanged, which is not material to the purpose of the committee or the minutes or anything else. It's really not adding anything. other than a difference of opinion and a point of friction, however brief it may have been between the two of us, it really doesn't add to the minutes.
If I recall correctly, and my memory is shot to hell these days, but I thought the word strike through was used at least 3 times and included in the motion to strike through.
It's not how I recall.
Again,
So anyway, could,
but I'll remove it just to,
Thank
for peace, but I'll pull up the transcript of that just to validate,
right, no, thank you.
because it's the word strike through, not strike.
And I see the answer to one of my earlier questions about the materials from, October 16 of 2019. Is on page 5, and I thank you for putting that in there. The, reference to Mr. Wold for the board meeting probably 5 years ago. So that gives the germane, makes the, material that you sent out today germane and relevant, and I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to page 7, I distributed this material, which was an earlier spreadsheet I did on every school in the district, whether district chartered or, and I added the county chartered ones. So, so this is an answer to, the observation on page 7 that, the total student population with trends of students attending schools, should be included in the report. So I wanted to put this in context relative to the comment that's in the minutes.
But it wasn't. We didn't have access to it at that meeting. This is supposed to be a reflection of what happened at that meeting.
No, I'm just, I'm not adding anything to the minutes. I'm not correcting the minutes. I'm just telling you that this fits into this part of the minutes.
So what are you asking to do? I'm not understanding.
You need to do nothing on it.
Okay. I appreciate that, this chart, I'll be spending a lot of time tonight going over the numbers.
Okay. And the source is in a footnote at the bottom of each page.
Is this electronically available?
I was using pardon my, stinginess. I was using an old laptop because I didn't have to send Microsoft more money to use the spreadsheet. And so, I will transfer it to a thumb drive or transfer it between machines and then eventually get it to a more modern machine and so you can have an electronic copy of it.
I'm just wondering, Sam, if you could type in that footnote thing either on the left or the right and be able to get that. I don't know.
Yeah, it takes a while to assemble all the numbers.
Oh, you said this is not, you did not get this directly off, this is something.
The data is from the state.
Compilation.
Okay, but you did, this is
The
not directly from them. This is something you put together?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll scan the hell out of it tonight. What good does it do to have 12 scanners? I can't.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
I make a motion to approve the July 16th minutes with the suggested amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Flores and seconded by Ms. Sigler that we approve the minutes as corrected. Hearing no objections, the minutes stand approved. Okay,
This is about the shortest discussion of minutes we've had in 3 or 4 months.
congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
We are now at item C1, public comment. Members of the public are invited to speak on any matter related to the 7-Eleven committee at this time. Members of the public may speak on individual items of interest in the agenda as the items are discussed. Do we have any hands raised?
Not at this time.
Do you have it? I have no forms before me for public comment.
Only person here is her child.
He doesn't wish to speak.
No, doesn't want to speak.
Or not on topic, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let us move on to the action items, which is E1, the review draft report facilities advisory 7-Eleven committee to the Board of Education. Discussion and action to adopt the draft report.
I'm sorry, what happened to D?
There is no D on the agenda.
Discussion items?
That might be last meeting's packet.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. As my students would say. Oh, D1, thank you very much.
You were confirming the address from the packet.
Yeah, sorry. I deeply apologize to everyone concerned. Okay, update, now this looks familiar. Updates on workforce housing and WCC USD resolutions on workforce housing and Prop 2. The brief presentation on the State Superintendent's Housing Summit, District Resolution 2425-22, resolution in support of education, workforce housing, and Resolution 2425-11 in favor of Prop 2. By way of reference, I got my voters' information today. Everyone should probably get one. And Proposition 2 appears, well, I was looking at the more detailed part. There's a summary, and it concerns $10 billion for public school and community college facilities. And 8.5 billion of that would go to the public schools, and 1.5 billion would go to community colleges. And within the public school amount, 600 million would go to charter schools. And there are certain allocations for small school districts. So I encourage everyone to read the voter information on Proposition 2. It came up at the meeting at Sacramento of the Housing Summit, which was convened by the State Superintendent of Education, Tony Thurman, who's a resident of our district and a former board member. And the people at the meeting included the following panelists: Tom Grable, the chairman of the California Building Industry Association; Jennifer Barrera, who's the president and CEO of the California Chamber of Commerce; Chris Hannon, who's the president of the California State Building Trades Council; and Mr. Thurman, who's the state superintendent of education. In brief, there was, everyone is part of your packet is this handout that was at the summit. And I sent everyone an email with a link to the webinar, and it was held on the 14th of August in Sacramento, and I attended in person. So among the observations is that there's 240,000 homeless students in California, that there's a need to create more housing. And the objective was to, of the webinar and meeting, was to discuss ideas and strategy for increasing housing units on 150,000 acres of surplus property by district, of which approximately 75,000 acres is developable. And there was 500 million in tax tax audits each year. And so the assistant director of housing appointed by President Biden also participated. So they discussed what opportunities are available for California and the suitable land. So among the things was that students need to see a future both for themselves and for housing. And among the things that were discussed is AB 2295, which changed the zoning for all school property in California to permit housing. So, it was pointed out that the Jefferson Elementary School District, which is in Daly City, built workforce housing. And as a result of that, a number of their faculty moved into the housing, faculty and staff, and they started the school year in 2023-24 with no vacancies whatsoever. So they were able to retain all their staff. By contrast, in our district, it's my understanding that our retention rate is 65%, which means that we have 35% vacancies in teaching staff. So an incentive would be for the district to consider workforce housing on some of the land that has been declared surplus. And among the people there was Professor Jeff Vincent, who was part of the city lab at UC Berkeley. And he wanted people to look at the resources that are available and the financing. And the only caution that was issued by the financing, which I think came up in a meeting earlier here with Maureen Toms, was that if the district elects to have federal funding, then no restrictions can be placed on housing. In other words, it can't be held back just for staff. It has to meet federal guidelines, and that has a life of 50 years. So there's a possibility that the district can use some of the money from Prop 2 to rebuild schools and or other facilities. And if they can, then some restrictions might be able to be retained so that it's used for workforce housing. Otherwise, not so much. Okay, so that was the gist of it. I would encourage everybody to go to the link and view the webinar. It was a full day conference. Glad I went. Good. So. And with respect to workforce housing resolution by the board, that's in our packet. So resolution 25-22. And everyone can read that on their own. It would be in the district's long-term interest to have workforce housing, and the second resolution, which is also there, has to do with facilities modernization. Okay. So my 15 minutes are up.
Good comment.
Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. The resolution that was passed the other night on workforce housing, this has nothing to do with workforce housing, it has to do with process. It bothers me that we've spent past 2 years discussing surplus property and without talking to us or anything like that, without even mentioning to us that this resolution was going to be on there. The message they sent was, we're going to go with workforce housing no matter what recommendation you have. And it goes along with something that one of the trustees told me on his way out of the board meeting just a few weeks ago, where he made it crystal clear. He said that we don't have to even listen to what you have to say, let alone follow any of our advice that we give. It's just, I serve on a number of committees, and I'm getting tired of having my time wasted, hundreds of man hours spent when decisions are made without ever talking to us. So it's like they're going through the motions of having a 7-Eleven committee. We had the same thing with the prioritization committee, with the bond oversight committee, where we're just being ignored on everything. And they're making decisions without ever talking to the people. And in this case, again, this one was very labor intensive on over a 2-year period. We're not even done yet, and they've already decided they're going to go with workforce housing. It just bothers me. That's a disrespect for all of us. Because they didn't even show us the respect to tell us, we've got this resolution that we're going to submit that will directly affect the work that you're doing.
Duly noted. You weren't the only person caught unawares,
No,
but, nevertheless.
most people.
Is what we're presented with at the moment. The reality is that board members are politicians and they are running for reelection, and so we'll see how it goes. People will make their opinions known.
Sorry, if you brought up the fact that politicians, with 2 out of the 3 they're running, their races were already decided before this even got drafted.
I don't know if the races are decided before the election.
No, the Kristen Conley with the elections, there's nobody running against it. They're already declared the winner.
Okay,
2 out of the 3.
okay, thank you.
Their name won't even be on the ballot. Serious. They even refund the filing fee.
Okay, and those members were again?
Cynthia Hernandez and Yanila Smith Bolts.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Henderson? Yep. I'd like to turn the meeting over to you. For a presentation on the legal side.
Can I pause for a quick question
Sure.
from someone who's logged on and seeing what our viewers at home are seeing? Can you confirm that this presentation is showing on the screen?
Yep.
Sure.
I can see it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay,
So if I can just mention something, as somebody who's been looking at a lot of these things. If you get a chance, once we've seen this page, take it off there so we can see the people in here. Makes it a lot easier to see who's speaking.
Sure.
We're hearing voices and I'm going through on minutes from March 5th, and I can't tell if it was you speaking or the attorney lady speaking. So, very similar voices.
Absolutely.
Also for clarification for the, meeting minutes, we are moving on to agenda item B2. Okay.
correct. Thank you, everyone. This will be relatively short because it's a relatively short process, but let's go ahead and get started on the exchange of real property. The members of the 7-Eleven committee had asked, I think at the last meeting, for a summary on this particular process. So go ahead and jump in. The first slide might look remarkably familiar and probably harkens back multiple years, but quickly, you guys are the 7-Eleven committee. Your role is to determine if there's surplus property or not. The board declares the property surplus after receiving the report from the 7-Eleven committee, and then has to make public offerings. That's about as short of a summary I can make of the sub-part committee process. Let's go to the next slide. Your role is to determine if there's property that's surplus. There are other options for up board, and I know we've talked about, I think, virtually all of these, but these are some of them. Exchanging real property, and there's the statute. The joint use statute relates to the joint use of real property. There's a joint occupancy statute. There is a somewhat similar joint occupancy statute that's in the government code for fee producing facilities, plus employee housing projects. And the committee president just mentioned a little bit more update on that. Yeah.
Can you clarify for me what is meant by joint use and joint occupancy when it comes to this?
They are just alternatives for use of the property that don't require a finding of surplus. In other words, the board could go on and exchange property, jointly use property, occupy property, etc., without finding them surplus. These are statutory structures for shorter timeframes and other instances where the property would not need to be deemed surplus. Exchange happens to be one of them. But again, the committee had asked for us to talk about exchange.
Can you give us an example of what joint use or joint occupancy would look like?
Sure, a joint use is oftentimes used when we share a field with the city, oftentimes. There's another, not to get too diving into the statute, there's another statute called the Community Recreation Act, which we could rely on if we were jointly using it. Joint occupancy tends to be larger projects that last a little longer because the time frame can go up to 55 years. Perhaps it's a site that is somewhat isolated. We've done agreements with Public Storage and that kind of thing. They've taken over a site. We've gone through the joint occupancy procurement steps. And maybe they convert a site to public storage. It requires the State Board of Education to sign off on it. Again, the property doesn't have to be deemed to be surplus because we're still using some portion of the site or some other component.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, let's go to quickly. Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned the parks something, is that different from the Naylor Act?
Yes, quite a bit different.
Okay,
Yeah, we still are, the district's still keeping the property. Sorry, I got something in my throat. Sites where we're perhaps using the field during school hours and sharing the field with extracurricular activities and soccer leagues, lacrosse leagues, et cetera. On off hours or weekends or something like that. That's oftentimes the joint use or the Community Recreation Act. Again, two statutes we use oftentimes in those instances.
does the district currently have, and I'm asking because no one's been able to answer this to me, as a commissioner for the city of Richmond for the Recreation Parks Commission, do we currently have an active joint use agreement with the school district and the city of Richmond specifically for parks and fields?
I probably don't know the exact answer with the city of Richmond on the exact joint use. I know there's, there are some joint use agreements I think I know with other cities. I don't know if the city of Richmond, I just don't know the answer. They very well may, they may not.
I've been asking for years.
Well, and again, I don't know the answer of whether or not it exists. Unrelated to what we're gonna be talking about in the next three slides, I know there's, the district has some sites that are used through Facilitron and signing up through that. That's a little different than what we're talking about here. It's certainly different than the exchange that we're about to talk about on the next
Sure.
slide.
I think I was asking simply because although it's nice to see these options, in the real world, logistically, actually implementing them is really challenging. I know the joint use agreements are really difficult to actually accomplish, which is why I'm glad that these are options being discussed, but I think it's also important to put into context of how feasible it is to actually implement these.
Fair point. And again, my role in this tonight is to kind of walk through statutory structures to do it. The negotiations, the policy, the relationships and everything else, that the outside of my,
Yep, okay.
outside of my pay grade. But how to do it once the policy is determined, frankly, is where we kind of dive in.
Okay,
I swear I'm gonna talk about exchange of property. Next slide, let's get to it. I promise not to read statute. I included this in here. This is the entire statute for the exchange of real property for California schools. Don't bother reading it. I'm gonna summarize it in the next slide. It's only 3 sections and it's relatively short. And the last one's almost irrelevant because it has to do with EVAs and emergency vehicle access next to roadways, which virtually never kicks in. So it's really only the first 2 statutes. So what does all that say? Let's go to the next slide. The statute says the district can't exchange real property for other real property with any other entity, private entity, public entity, etc. The bottom line is you negotiate it. Any exchange agreement shall be on the terms the parties agree to. That makes it absolute sense. There are no bells and whistles, frankly, that the district has to fall through. That has to pass a resolution of intent by a 2/3 vote, declaring the intention to exchange the property. And the bottom point is not in the statute, but it's realistic. There's always money involved. I deal in property all the time. I've been doing it for decades. There's no 2 pieces of property that have exactly the same value. I shouldn't say that kind of an absolute. Very rare, you're gonna find 2 pieces of property. So usually maybe one's worth $1 million, one's worth 1.2. Well, then there's usually negotiation. How are we gonna compensate for that extra 200,000? Money is oftentimes a part of this. Now, I think it would be a violation of the statute to exchange property that's, $4 million versus $50,000, because then you're in essence buying the property or selling the property, because then the delta is so large. It's not in the statute, but I've spent almost 30 years avoiding that kind of what I would call a tension in the statute. There has to be some nearby valuation of the property, but it's virtually never equal because properties rarely are exactly the same cost. Go to the next slide. Recommended steps. What we normally do is enter into an ENA for really both parties, because again, at this time, remember what's happening here, both are sellers and both are buyers at this point. So we're swapping property. No, nobody's just giving money, the person who wants the district property wants the district property, and we want to get whatever the other property is, because we think we can use that for our purposes more. So we want to enter into an early exclusive negotiating agreement. It's kind of rare that we ever recommend our clients do this, but this is one of the few instances that ENA makes sense. And we describe all the priorities, the deal points, think of it as a glorified term sheet of what we're gonna be going. The board considers that and enters into it, and then frankly, the next step is ironing it all out, finalizing the costs, getting final appraisals. Sometimes it's an argument on what the value of the property is, but ultimately finally getting to an exchange agreement between the two parties. And then the board approves the exchange. Honestly, that is frankly it for the exchange of property. Go to the next slide, which I think is me signing off. So yeah, we can take it off and people's heads can pop up now, because that's the end of the presentation. It is one of the simpler real property provisions in the education code. At least as far as the statute goes. But I'll let you all know now, the negotiations for exchange of property can take a while. Because again, you are a buyer and a seller, you always think your property is worth more than the person who wants to buy it thinks it's worth, and vice versa. You think that the other piece of property should be lower in value, so the negotiations over price. It's funny, you're not negotiating price on one piece of property now, you're negotiating on two pieces of property, and who's willing to give on it. So the negotiations can take a while. As far as the board step in doing it, one resolution of intent and approval of the agreement. It's relatively simple as a legal matter. Process and reality wise, it takes a minute.
Can we go back to the previous slide that showed the exclusive negotiating agreement information? I just want to look at it more.
I apologize, I have to pull that back up.
That was not included in our
Yeah, I was
packet,
just saying,
correct?
we don't have it in the packet, so I
It
can't.
was not included in the packet, but we can send it out at the end of the meeting to everyone.
That's. Thank you. I got 3 questions or comments.
Go ahead, I need to read this before I can ask anything.
John?
Okay, first off, one of those statements there talk about a 2/3 majority needed for that, to exchange the property. With 5-member board, that means that 4 out of the 5 have to agree to it. That's a pretty tough sell on just about anything. Getting 4 or 5, especially our board, getting 4 or 5 to agree. They can't hardly agree on adjourning the meeting. But also, one of the values of that video that I sent out from 2019, they didn't speak so much about the legalities, they talked about the value in exchanging property. Now granted, these people were pushing an agenda, even our associate superintendent, Tony Wold, was pushing an agenda on there. You have to always keep that in mind. They weren't telling you both sides of the story. But it went far beyond the legalities. In fact, I don't think it touched on the legalities like you talked about there. They just talked about the rationale for doing it and how advantageous. The one thing they'd love to keep throwing up is that one school district that exchanged a property that had a Home Depot on it where they got $1 million a year forever and ever. Because Home Depot's not going out of business. And that was of value to the school district on there. But
You said there were 2 sides, there were other sides.
well, they weren't telling us the negatives. Or, yeah, like the length of time it would take or the complexity of negotiations.
Okay.
That wasn't included in their presentation.
Okay.
I mean, even though they try to say, you know, we're not looking for a contract to do this, but this is the business that we're in. You kind of felt that they were looking for a contract.
Okay, and your additional comments? You said you had 3.
And of course, I've got what the third is now. I'll remember on my way out.
I had more questions about the exclusive negotiating agreement, but I wanted to see the slide because we went past it very quickly. There we go. So, okay, yeah, I already tell you, it doesn't answer my question. Are there end dates to exclusive negotiating agreements? And are those baked into conversations? Because it's possible you go into an ENA, but you don't actually get to the contract, right?
Absolutely.
Because I know of several instances that that's happened in this town. So Can you describe a little bit of what that process is like, getting like, sure, maybe the ENA and the contracts aren't difficult, but you have an ENA, you don't have a contract, what happens?
Yeah. So I'll kind of go chronologically. The ENA, I've never seen them without an end date, plus termination provisions. Meaning if one party wants to back out at any time, they can. At least we always put that in, because frankly, I want the district to be able to get out if it wants to get out and not be tied to it. I don't want a fee to be paid on the exit either. Again, I'm just now telling you what we always push in. They should always have an end date. 6 months is short, I'll be honest with you, when you're talking about real property, you know, unless everyone's agreeing, you could almost agree that it could be in a month and everyone's gonna go, but we usually have an expectation that there's gonna be some back and forth on the negotiation of the price. 6 months would be short, year is reasonable. If somebody's asking for more than a year, I'm gonna start asking questions going, well, what is it that's taking so long? We can certainly value this, et cetera. So that's, again, those, I wish I could say every deal is the same, they're not, but those are the starting points, I would say. We're gonna negotiate an ENA. There was a second question that you had come up with for, maybe not,
You
okay,
got it, thank you.
okay.
So on the ENA, why, I mean, what is so complicated that it would take 6 months to a year to negotiate?
Evaluations, almost always, it's almost always the valuation that we disagree with their appraiser. Do we now have to get a third appraiser who's gonna come and look at both of the properties? How did you value it this way? We've got one appraiser looking at the valuation criteria and logic of the other appraiser, and then vice versa. We've had to hire a third-party real estate consultant to come and look at both appraisals and say, actually, is our appraiser's logic reasonable and a good conclusion? And what about the other side? I always said seller, but the seller buyer, the buyer on the other side. So that can take some time. Again, if the valuation question, there isn't one and everyone agrees one's worth 1.0 and one's worth 1.2. Like I said, that could be a 30-day ENA and you enter into an agreement. I wish those happened more often than they do. There's usually always some back and forth, and it's usually always about the money, frankly.
It's always hard for me to understand this lengthy thing. I'm working a business where you're working 24/7 because there's a lot of money, building oil refineries.
Yeah.
You know, but you got units that are $400,000 a day profit. Yeah, they want to get it done now. And so it's just hard for me to,
Well, and I don't
grasp
wanna
what's gonna
discount
happen.
the other factors. You know, is the property truly gonna be usable by the district that they're getting? And that's usually an evaluation of feasibility, what's the need? It's in an area oftentimes the district where there's growth. Does the district expect growth to continue sufficiently that we're gonna need that site at that spot? Usually that kind of homework has been done before we've entered it in an ENA. But there's been some rare instances where actually, a developer comes or somebody comes and says, we really want your site, we have this one, which we think is good for you. And we've never even thought about it. Well, then we're potentially entering that ENA and we've done like almost no feasibility to even figure out if it's useful. Usually we've got a month or two of head start because we heard about the property, knew about the property and, we're working on it. So, but again, money usually ends up being the thing that takes longer than almost everything else.
Okay, shall we move on to joint use? All right, or are we gonna go down to 5?
No, this was just a presentation about exchange.
Okay.
That was it. I think we kind of ran down joint use and joint occupancy and the other ones before. Certainly talked about workforce housing.
I guess I'd like an example of, does our district currently use any of the, the non-surplus options like joint occupancy or any of the other options provided? Do we have any examples currently within the district?
I believe so. And again, I don't want to get too detailed because frankly, I don't know if I know the exact answer. I believe you do have joint use or facility use, sometimes they're called that, facility use.
so you
agreements
see
with that.
WCUSD?
Yeah, the district.
But this is not, it's not on surplus property though. is it?
No,
Okay.
these are joint use, yeah, no.
Right.
All right, okay, good, because the last surplus property was
No,
1995?
make sure I'm clear on this. I'm talking about jointly using or potentially joint occupying,
Okay.
you know, some of them might be on the Community Recreation Act. I'm only hesitating answering because I guess I do believe some exist. I'm just not sure where they are and what they are at this moment.
The other half of Harmon Knolls.
Yeah,
Is it? Okay,
it's
I-
expired, it's
That's
expired.
what I'm saying is that it's
Yeah.
supposed to be under a joint use agreement, but the city of Richmond, again, I've been pushing on this. And no one's been able to give me an answer. At this point, we just believe that there is no agreement because it hasn't been redone or you know. So again, I like these things. I like joint use, it just sounds so good. But if we can't actually use them, then why is it being discussed as an option if our district or our cities or whomever, I think we just need to be realistic about capacity in that aspect. This takes money, this takes time, this takes legalese, and it's not being done in certain parts that we already have, you know, at Harmon Knolls, for example.
So if I can ask a question on that, what avenues have you taken to try to get that information?
Well, within the Commission for Recreation and Parks,
Uh-huh.
I bring it up often. I've talked to deputy directors in Recreation and Parks to ask about these agreements, what the status is. I think the only thing I haven't, no, I did do a public records request and it was the same one from 2007. So these are all things that haven't led to any result that's demonstrated, actionable changes to an old document, an old agreement.
With the public records request, did you get a response that provided any usable information? No, or any response at all?
Yeah, I did. It had to do with, parks and sports facility use and what kind of agreements were in place. Including like RPAL and things like that. But specifically, I wanted to know if there was an updated, joint use agreement for any district and city of Richmond facilities. And there's no current document, which is basically a no, we have not updated this.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, I've got, over the past couple of months, I've sent 5 or 6 public records requests.
Hmm.
I just got a response today, it only took 9 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I think legally, we're supposed to be getting in back in 60 days, is it?
Well, they're supposed to acknowledge within 10 days.
Oh,
They didn't even sign the return receipt. I'm getting my money back on that.
yeah,
Oh, excuse me, I want to get back to the agenda if I may. Ms. Payne, with respect to joint occupancy, I'm aware of some, after-school programs that move on to the school facilities and provide after-school services for students. The one I'm thinking of course, is Kenston, because I'm most familiar with that. But I think the, after-school program was moved off campus so that facilities could be freed up for the school itself. Are there other childcare after-school programs in the district at other schools?
I'm not familiar, with these types of agreements, and so I could definitely look into it.
Okay. But with respect to the surplus properties, we don't have anything like that. I think there was once a childcare facility on Harmon Knolls, but that's been demolished, is that not correct? There was a some of our photographs showed a building in the Harmon Knolls site.
Yeah,
and then it
so
was-
there's no longer a building at Harmon Knolls.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the district, I'm sure, has quite a few agreements with either childcare, potentially with cities on use. Again, I'm still not sure if there's one with Richmond. Completely unrelated to surplusing the property. It doesn't need to surplus to enter into those relationships or anything else. And again, focus of this committee, I know you said,
Right.
let's get back to the agenda. All has to do with, whether or not surplus. Again, can we consider the other options that are open to the district? Sure, and that's why, one of the reasons we talked about exchange. Pretty rare that would happen. Maybe there is an exchange property that we could, swap out Adams and get another property that we think, whatever.
Mhm.
But that's, again, ultimately, you can make it part of your recommendations in your report or not. And again, when it goes to the report, the board will consider the report.
Right.
That's what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have further comments in your presentation? Well, thank you very much. Oh, let's see. So now we're down to action items, which is item E1, review the draft report facilities advisory. 7-Eleven committee to the Board of Education, and Ms. Payne,
Thank you very
the
much.
floor is yours.
So starting on page 17 of the packet is the current version of the draft report version 1.4 with tracked changes. And so the changes that are identified here include the track changes that were provided at the last meeting, as well as track changes from the meeting minutes. I tried to follow those and incorporate those as well. I apologize. I had made a commitment at the last meeting to send out the draft report in advance of the meeting. And that didn't happen. And so I want to publicly apologize for that. It is here in the packet. All changes have been tracked and are reflected here. One of the things in looking through the report, there's a couple of items that still aren't completed. We've walked through this report in previous meetings, but I do want to call attention on page 33 of the report, or excuse me, on page 33 of the packet. There are two sections, additional considerations guiding the 7-Eleven committee's work. There is nothing in that section at this time. And also in section 10, method of public notification of the 7-Eleven committee hearing. This section of the report would be completed once the committee approves this draft report. When the draft report is approved by this committee, then we would publish for the public hearing. And so in the public hearing, it would be a notice that would be published in the paper. I received an email from the paper just the other day that due to shortages in staffing as they're making their alignments, I now need 7 days notice to the paper before they'll publish. And so I would send them the public notice 7 days later, it would run in the paper. In that public notice, it would identify the location of the draft report, which would be made available on the website, and it would provide that, as well as we would have a hard copy of the draft report available here in this office, as well as at the administration building of the district for anybody that wanted to review the report in hard copy. And then the notice would also identify the time and location of the public hearing. But those are the steps that we would take once this committee approves the draft report to then move to public hearing. At those publicly noticed hearings, it's an opportunity for the committee to receive feedback from the broader community about the draft report. Those recommendations come through the public hearing, and then the 7-Eleven committee, after considering and hearing all of those public comments, decides how they want to finalize the report and then approve a final report to move forward to the board. So essentially that process and those notifications would be part of what would fill in that section. And then lastly, I would point out when we get to the appendices for the draft report, there's two sections. So Appendix A includes the meeting agendas and meeting minutes, which would include the different presentations and materials that have been brought before the committee. And then Appendix B is a section for the current and projected enrollments, where we would share the data that's been provided throughout the committee as it relates to enrollment. And so there are still a couple sections of the draft report that aren't completely drafted at this time. But other than that, everything that you'll see in the draft report that's included in the packet is as we've reviewed in the last two committee meetings.
And the newspaper you said was the East Bay Times? Thank you.
Mhm.
Um,
So it used to be 3 days in advance, it's now 7.
is the communications department of the district involved in any of this, or does it come straight from facilities management? And with respect to notifying the public?
So we would work in partnership with communications. There's a number of different platforms that we could use to cast a wider net. One of them is, and I want to say Power School because Parent Square, they both start with P. Parent Square is one of the main communication tools that's used to reach out broadly. And so we would definitely partner with them. I know there's a number of different communication avenues. Mr. Gosney shared a number of them. And so I do think that it's critical for the public hearings that in addition to the required legal notice, that we have kind of a distribution strategy to make sure people are aware, to encourage them to, you know, review the draft report and to bring forward their comments and recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. John?
Melissa's heard me say it because this many times before, but you guys, fresh news for you. Here in West Contra Costa County, we have 268,000 people living here. And you only have about 50,000 parents. This isn't a parent issue. This is a taxpayer issue. As the people that are paying for all of our school facilities. And so we need to broaden it out so we don't just go to PTSAs, we don't go to Power School. We have to reach out to the community as a whole to let them know what is happening on something like that. You have at least 6 online newspapers in West Contra Costa County that I know of. You've got several others that are hard copies that go specifically targeted demographics. And then you've got quite a number of Facebook sites and Nextdoor sites as well. And it's a lot more places that we can get the word out other than just the public notice in the East Bay Times, because I see a lot of these things, but I don't read them.
Yeah, your point is well taken, and that's why I asked about the communication department,
Yes,
because that really falls into their bailiwick.
and I've told them the exact same things. Yeah.
All right, with respect to the draft report, and what to do here. So we have this updated report in our packet now. And I suppose that, I'm just gonna speak my mind. I don't feel like I've given the proper due, the attention that it's due. In the few minutes that I've had the draft report since I printed it out and so forth. So, I'd like to propose that we take the draft report and come back in a reasonably quick period of time to adopt it so that we can move on and to the public hearings, because we have to do both in order to submit it to the board. And I know your point about the unopposed members of the board. I grant the issue, but I think some things could change with the election with respect to this committee, because at least one member of the committee is running for the board. And should that change occur, then this committee will change. So we kind of have a period of time to get the work done. And if we can't get it done, then we have to reconstitute the committee again, because we will not have 7 members. We'll have 6. So, so with that in mind, you know, if everybody please look at your calendars and think about how soon can we meet again, perhaps in 2 weeks' time. And say yea or nay on the draft report that we've received in the packet today. And move on to setting public hearing dates. and notification. We would have 6 weeks.
I have a wondering, this is really our only action item, right? Besides setting future,
Right?
and it's 7:08, and I think most of us plan to be here till 8. How long do we need to read the report? Like, could we take 20 minutes and read and discuss? Because if I'm just really honest, I think my calendar as the fall goes on only gets crazier. And so do we need another meeting to give feedback, or do we need quiet reading time?
Discussion?
I'm down the power read for the next 15 minutes so we can knock this out.
I've got some things I'd like to, I got issues I've got with what I'm reading here.
Okay,
Missing things I think we were missing.
all right,
or-
so would it be all right with the members of the committee to reconvene the meeting at 7:25? That's in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Is that
works for
sufficient
me.
time? Ms. Moore? Okay,
What was the time again, so I can put it
so
up?
we will adjourn at 7:10 and reconvene at 7:25. Excuse me, any comments, changes, and with the objective to adopt the draft report, if possible. Hearing no objections. So the Stewart motion made a motion, if you will, to adjourn for 15 minutes to read the report and come back at 7:20, and with my amendment, to come back at 7:25. With our recommendation.
And now we're coming back.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting. We've all had a chance to review the draft report. So what I'd like to do is start at the beginning and so this will be on page 17 of your packet, the cover sheet. Any changes? Nope. On page 2. Any changes? Page 3. No. Page 4.
No.
On page 5, which is page 21 in the packet. I tried to count the number of meetings. And as of today, discounting Castle meetings,
Mhm.
as of today, counting this meeting, I got to 14.
It's about right.
So, right. So that's fine. So we're gonna have one more meeting before our public hearings, or we're gonna have one more meeting before public hearings? Yes, no?
We don't have approved meeting minutes for all of the meetings to put
So
in
we
the
need one-
appendix to the draft report.
Okay.
So if we were
So it sounds like
compiling
2
the
meetings.
final draft report with all of the meeting minutes, we could provide drafts, because it's a draft report. And all of the meetings are available online. I'm just trying to think through, the different components, so. I would say probably one more meeting,
I'll make a suggestion.
please,
Well, you figured out.
No, you already started talking.
Yeah, your hand was up first.
It's always up. Go
That might
ahead.
be true. There's nothing stopping you from holding a hearing and perhaps before the hearing, spend the first 20 minutes, if you will, having, if you will, a meeting. And if you need to go through the minutes, meaning there's nothing
Mhm.
stopping you from having the hearing while the meeting, if you will, the minutes are catching up to you.
Okay,
So this may be in the efficiency of time.
right.
like the board meeting,
Exactly.
yeah, where they hold a public hearing during the meeting.
All right, well, just trying to come up with a number to fit into the box.
Mhm, mhm.
So, counting this meeting, I got to 14. So, Don, suggestion?
Well, yeah, I got issues here, but, I'm glad that I allowed, Phil to speak first, because I got a problem with addressing the minutes and approving them right before the meeting, because we're supposed to send the packet out in advance so people can have a chance to review it. And if they don't have the approved minutes beforehand, they don't even have the approved minutes when they show up in the room. Are we doing it, are we being transparent? Are we doing them a service? I think we need to have the pack, sorry,
Sorry to interrupt. It's all recorded. The meetings are
Yeah,
posted.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. This idea of, well, you can go to this website page, or you can go to watch all these videos instead of looking at minutes. I guarantee you, it takes a lot less time to read 5 or 6 pages than it does to watch a 2-hour video. If you've got the wherewithal to do that, and it should be a standalone document. Okay, I should be able to print it out, bind it, put it on my shelf out there without having to go look at videos or go to some other web page to get at the information that should be included in this. So I think that we need to make sure that we've got the minutes approved, that we've got the document ready and available, so when we send out the notice in the newspaper, people can pull it up on there. No, you go ahead and respond to that before I get down to my other issues. Okay?
With the insertion of the word approximately 15, would that, so we don't etch it in stone here. We just want a number. So,
What,
or tentatively, or some wiggle word, if you will, to allow us to put something in so people have some idea of how much work we put into the darn thing.
if we have, to say one more meeting, with a particular interest in reviewing the number of minutes that we need to approve. Okay, once we have those minutes approved, we're gonna have that meeting. We can go ahead and insert that number in here at that time,
Okay,
because
okay,
we don't have to have it in there now. I'm
Okay.
speculating, but on the same page 21 on the packet, on item number 3, 7-Eleven committee membership. I know it says it elsewhere, the effective date that the board appointed the following persons. But I would like to have it listed here too, so that they don't have to go and search through go 15 pages in advance to find out what page. Just, and put out there also that the first meeting of this group was on March 5th. That makes sense?
yeah. So, as, if you will, at the beginning of that, heading, the board appointed, as of March 5th. I'm losing my grip on years, but 2024. As of March 5th, 2024, the board appointed the following persons, actually, they did it before.
Yeah.
They did it before, so prior to March 5th, 2024.
Well, put down the date. Because the next page, they actually have the dates with the other people were appointed. I don't know what the date they appointed, I wasn't paying attention. I think it was sometime in January.
Okay,
But
as
just
of
list the
January
date.
24, 2024.
With the, yeah,
That's the last,
put the month and the date.
That's what I said.
Well, I thought you said January twenty twenty-four.
No, I said as of
No, but I'd like to see the date.
January, as of January 24, 2024, the board appointed the following persons to the 7-Eleven committee.
On page 22, you've got January 26, 2022. You've got September 7th, 2022. You've got February 28th, 2023. You've got specific dates.
Right.
Why are we
The
breaking?
last one, the board approved the 7-Eleven committee membership to include Don Gosney, James Sanders, Samantha Ann Torres, Summer Sigler, and the addition of the following new members, Guadalupe Lana, Liz Gray, and Artu.
Yeah, just-
Gentile.
I said, yeah, but just on page 21,
Yeah.
but January 24th, 2024.
I would also,
And it, again, first meeting on March 5th.
could we also clarify the difference between January 24th, which is the effective date that's listed on the front page, and then January 26th, which is then listed on the date for the page 22? Oh, sorry, that's from 2022. My mistake, my mistake. That's
Right.
from years ago, my mistake.
Okay,
You know, it was a version, you coming up a version date?
No, I missed, it was my bad. We could just ignore this.
Okay.
I'm good at ignoring.
All right, so, one more time, Don, so I get this firmly in my brain.
That's it.
The line, the board appointed the following members to the 7-Eleven committee, colon. Where would you like,
Why don't we leave it up to Melissa? She's drafting all this. She just insert the data.
So I was just thinking, if you guys would like me to, I could close the agenda packet, which is a PDF, and I could open up the tracked Word document, and so you guys could see how I'm reflecting what you're recommending. To make sure that I'm reflecting it the way that you would like it to be seen.
Just that's a good idea.
without objection?
Don't care.
Okay,
Have faith in her.
and nobody's trying to hoodwink anybody here.
And for our viewers at home, let me reshare the screen so everybody can see what we see. So we know that we'll update this once we have the final number. So what I heard was in section 3, I'm going to put something in this table because of the chords. This will be super fun. Okay. On. Like that? Is that what you were asking?
Correct typo, but yes,
I can't see. Where's the typo?
the word the,
It's because I deleted the upper case and made it a lowercase.
Tracking. And mention that their first meeting was March 5th, 2024.
March.
5.
Okay.
All right.
Just curious,
Mhm.
why isn't it tracking on the right-hand side, column? Like all your other stuff was?
You're in normal view, not full screen.
And I have to tell you from here, there is a terrible glare, so I can
Yeah, I'm just curious.
not really
It
see.
doesn't affect anything here, but
That's the way you got
Navigation.
it set up.
I can't really see the screen, you guys can see.
I know I'm gonna get in trouble with someone under Marion, but after the word committee, should there be a comma, compound sentence?
Under track changes, reviewing, I think that's what we're looking for. Vertical. Is it?
Nope.
Right? Okay.
That wasn't it.
Is it comments then that you're looking for?
No, go back up, go into review, sorry. Go to show, where it says show markup and the little arrow after it.
Yeah.
See it, I'm sorry. I can't.
The little
see.
down, yeah, the
We'll
little, there you
click
go.
there.
That will give you a menu. Balloons, go to balloon. Show all revisions, balloon. Okay.
Okay. You guys can see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. It mentions,
I can see a light fixture.
it mentions the deleted T, but it doesn't mention the additional text. I'm just,
Yeah,
observation,
yeah.
strange stuff. Word hates me too.
Okay. Yes.
Should there be a comma after the word committee, since you have a compound sentence? Just ask. My legal authority said no.
The English major said no.
Okay,
Do we still want to call in
Strunk,
at the
Strunk and
end?
White said no.
I've read Strunk and White. Okay,
The other thing that I heard was that for each one of these committee members, we were going to add language to identify the date that they were appointed as a member.
Who has that? I didn't hear it. I'm just,
Oh, I thought that's what you had said, the date that each member was approved, but maybe you
Oh,
were
no,
saying
no,
the
no.
date that the board approved the membership. Okay,
you know, this group, because
great,
the next page, you've got all the other groups.
yeah,
This was a blanket.
terrific. Shall we go to the next page?
Fortunately.
okay, so now we're looking at page 2, which is 22 in the packet.
I have a couple of items.
Okay, Don?
On the middle of the page, paragraph starts on February 28th, 2023. The COVID-19 state of emergency ended, comma, and the existing 7-Eleven committee was unable to achieve a quorum. I worry that it's confusing that they were unable to achieve a quorum during the state of emergency when that was not a deciding factor on it being disbanded. I would, it maybe after ended, comma, but afterwards, the existing 7-Eleven committee was unable to achieve a quorum.
Well, that just have 2 sentences,
Well, whatever,
2
again,
simple sentences.
So what might be missing from the sentence is that under the state of emergency, we were able to conduct Brown Act meetings remotely. And so for the formation of the committee and then the committee conducting its business under the state of emergency, all of the meetings were essentially remote and most people did not attend in person. And so once the in-person attendance requirement and the full requirements of the Brown Act were in place, we weren't able to achieve a quorum of members that could meet the Brown Act requirements. And so it just,
Okay,
I just got.
so with respect to.
oh, I know, so don't let me write it. So I'm happy to do what you would like me to do. I just wanted to give a broader explanation of what this
Yeah.
sentence was trying to identify, because that's truly what happened. We tried to hold a number of meetings.
Yeah, we
Right.
know. So I would go along with what Jim suggested, breaking it into 2 sentences, but then
Okay,
afterward ended, have a period. And then afterwards, the existing 7-Eleven committee was gonna,
Before you do that,
all right,
leave the comma there. And the full requirements of the Brown Act applied. Then the period. Then delete
Right.
and just go to the existing 7-Eleven committee was unable to achieve a quorum.
My point originally was to make sure people didn't confuse what happened during the pandemic with what happened after the pandemic, because it's what, that we, in fact, we couldn't get a quorum after the pandemic ended, well, was declared ended, the emergency was ended. That's what caused us to
So,
make major
Right,
changes.
so what we want is in-person attendance.
Well, just say afterward, the existing 7-Eleven committee was unable to achieve a quorum.
Okay. And it could not conduct its business.
And then due to the lack of attendance, it
Right.
could not conduct this business. Okay,
It's probably good enough.
So were you gonna make another amendment?
no, I'm
Oh.
just trying to reflect what you're asking me to do.
No, I get it. My original concern is that there's still possibility of confusion. That where it says the existing 7-Eleven committee, that people would confuse that action with what happened during the emergency as opposed to after the emergency.
So, instead of that opening, due to the lack of attendance,
Mhm.
just when you got achieve a quorum, comma. I want to say the 7-Eleven committee. Or consequently, the 7-Eleven committee could not conduct its business.
Here,
No, in place of due to the lack of attendance,
okay,
just consequently.
This is why you don't draft things by committee.
No, we did this
You know,
in
when
my
it gets
department.
submitted, I just want people to admire the perfect grammar.
Space before the big C, yeah.
Too many people in education in this room.
Well, and in different parts, because the Transitive Empire was not written until later in my life.
I've got one more thing on this page when you were done with that.
Go ahead, Don.
All right, at the bottom paragraph, from what I'm reading here, I've still got the question, when can it not be declared surplus? I'd like to see an explanation there, and I don't have suggested language because I don't know the answer. Much farther on, we're talking about it not being declared surplus on our recommendations, but not here.
It sounds a bit like you're asking me a question. I don't know exactly where you're looking at. Was it up on the screen? What part are you?
On item, the paragraph, on item 4 of the last,
Okay.
I'm rereading it, sorry. My notes were from 2 hours ago.
that's easier.
No, actually, the screen's actually easier than his paper.
You got a better angle.
Unless it,
Actually,
unless it obtains a waiver of the surplus property requirements. Well, when can it not be? When does that waiver kick in? What conditions?
Oh, there's a lot of different things that would have to be brought to the state board. That could be a whole page in and of itself. I don't know if it's necessary for this.
That could even
content.
be your standard response to keep things short.
You asked a lawyer if there's a way to keep things short, and you understand that was probably a.
Oxymoron.
Maybe a little bit.
Perry Mason, he conducts a whole murder trial in 30
In an
minutes
hour.
Hmm.
with commercials.
I,
You want to give
for
us,
Gosney, what's your ask? What are you asking?
just an explanation about when can it not be declared surplus? What conditions?
I don't, well, when can a piece of property not be declared surplus, or when would the state board not let you waive something?
Well,
Those are two different things.
I'm not as concerned about the state board.
Okay.
I have a question for you also.
Mhm.
The ending of that sentence is the district must offer to other public agencies. The phrase, the district must offer it to other public agencies. In my logical mind, which can be up to question, that fits better after, the board determines the property is surplus. So it would read, after the board determines the property is surplus, the district must offer to other public agencies unless it obtains a waiver of the surplus property requirements from the State Board of Education.
I like that better. It flows better.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's actually the unless is qualifying that statement.
Mhm.
Could I also ask that we review the use of the board must almost always? Cause it feels like there's two words in there that are very, like,
With any
absolute.
qualifications?
They're must and always are absolute, and then we throw in almost in the middle, so is there an alternative to explain? This could first determine, is that a better word?
So, what part of it are you looking at?
Second line of the last paragraph.
Okay. I'm not seeing, thank you. Must almost always?
Yeah,
It's
just-
either always or it's not.
right, well, and then must and always are both very like, absolute, and then almost, so if there's a word we could, maybe could, should, may, well, I think may was already on there.
Or
No,
just take out
just to be
must.
fair.
The board almost always
Yeah,
has to first determine.
That's fine. Just think is,
Or just move must after the word always. The board almost always must first determine.
So move
I'll leave it
must-
up to, I'll leave it up to you. It doesn't have to be discussed now. I felt like that was something
I
that
think
needed.
must could go after all this. It makes a little more sense. You can't see it.
I can't, thank you.
okay, how are we doing? Shall we move on to page 3 on our packet, page 23?
I have an issue.
Good.
Under item,
We're on page, are we on, are you on page 3?
page 3/20/23, yes,
Carry on.
okay. Under item 6, summary of the 7-Eleven committee's work. Again, same issue that I bring up all the time, that I don't want us to be referring people to a page online that may or may not exist. Earlier today, one of the pages on the 7-Eleven site gave me a 406 code. I can't find it now. I think you fixed it while I was in the other room. But anyway, I don't want to refer people offline, because if you don't have internet access, if you're looking at it, if you printed it out, yeah, you should be able to have access to the information without having to go to a completely different source of information. Where it says, it give you the URL. I just don't want, I don't like to see those in here.
So Don, if I understand you correctly, we stop with meeting agendas and minutes are included in appendix A, period. So it's just part of the report.
And along with the presentations. Period.
Hang on, what, Is it okay, Member Ghazi, if we say are available on the district website without giving the address? If somebody wants to be able to find it, we should be able to say they're on the website.
And are available, this one thing, yeah. But because further on, all of the agenda packets and the minutes are, we're directing people to go to a website.
Right,
They're not included in here. I'll bring that up when we get to that page.
so period after website and delete the rest,
And are available.
on the period, on the district website,
Yes,
cleaner.
There's two ands. There's appendix A and comma, and are available.
Right, so have to reorder it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that end should stay, the other one should go, actually. Now, this doesn't make sense. We need to include in appendix A. And along with the limitations are available. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
oh, okay. All of a sudden the letters started
You're back
disappearing.
to killing you.
All right, I'm good with that.
The cord, if I, yeah,
Get all
it's
of
okay.
it.
You know, you can scoot your table forward a little bit. Give yourself an extra 6 inches.
Next page.
Okay. So we're now looking at page 4, which is 24 in the packet.
No problem.
Anyone?
No.
All right, with respect to 25, 26, which is page 5 and 6. There's a blank area at the end of the table. And it says, please refer to section 11 for the findings and recommendations of the committee for the property. And as this thing gets put together, the recommendations move from one page to another. So my question, and this is a mechanical question, Melissa.
Mhm.
My question is, can we refer to the specific page where the specific recommendation for that particular property is given?
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, but my recommendation would be to do that when the report is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or else I'm gonna have to keep updating it.
Right,
No.
just
Yes,
as,
so we could leave ourselves a breadcrumb so that we don't forget that
Right, so
edit.
there's
So
the
I heard this can be deleted, this row, right?
Make sure we delete the right thing. Appreciate the help from everybody.
that's what Control Z is for.
Please refer to section for the findings and recommendations. So please refer to, do we want to do section 11, item this on page this?
Yeah, right.
I would
So-
also suggest
So
the
it would
hyperlink.
be, item A, section 11, item A,
So,
It's a capital A.
is capital A.
yeah, if you can put a hyperlink, that would,
On
Yeah.
page 14.
well, again, this can be changing,
Yeah,
Right,
so.
but just want to anchor the thought.
I have a question or an issue on the same page. When you're ready.
Okay.
On the right-hand cell, item number 3, line 2, limiting certain uses such as saloons, etc.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was maybe not. Can you tell me where again?
On page 26, that same page we were on, that you were just
Okay.
making a change. All right,
At the top of the page.
the right-hand cell,
Uh-huh.
line 2, right-hand side. I don't like the word et cetera. What are the other restrictions?
well, that's why they have the appendix, right? Are they gonna be providing more detail somewhere else?
I mean, a CCR?
That would be. I mean, they exist somewhere, right, on the district website already?
I've never seen it.
I thought we were told those would be updated at some point.
Or you're gullible. Sorry.
Well, we're the ones doing the updating.
I mean, I would just like it spelled out. I don't like to use word et cetera, to actually spell out what
Yeah,
items aside from saloons. Brothels, gaming casinos,
For instance, saloons.
well, yeah, we did say saloons, the et cetera's got me concerned.
That
Might
could
not
also
say
be
further
just
described.
referencing, something in the appendix, maybe?
Well, why don't we find out what those items were?
Mhm.
And just include them there. That work? Okay,
And I had just a general question, how frequently should we be updating our valuations, given that, here it's about 6 months old already, so how often should we consider updating? Can we update right before publication?
The, the comment from the real estate consultant, what that I got from Mr. Creeds was the opinions of value, they're not formal appraisals.
Oh, okay.
So they're just opinions of value, realtor's estimate of value.
Uh-huh.
And the numbers have not changed much, if at all,
in 2 years,
in 2 years.
yeah. Which surprises me. I remember reading that thing too, just
That's
earlier this afternoon.
Hard to believe, given how much equity my house has gained, but okay.
You could,
Right.
you could just put a date there,
You-
so it's known in the report, the date.
I thought we did have that. Did I get it wrong?
On the date of the valuation.
But it does, it says opinion of value as of April 9th, 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
okay,
that
yeah, I
is
did
6
see
months
it.
old is what I'm saying.
Maybe property doesn't increase in value quite as quickly as our houses on the property. I
It is an
Well-
election
You know, cost, since I watched, estimates that I was getting going up while I was thinking in my mind about doing something. The costs of demolition and everything else are going up, so we're talking about the value before those costs are, or the burden of those costs is assumed by someone else.
year.
And these are pretty broad ranges too.
Yeah,
I mean, even this one. I mean, you got yourself at an 11% range.
all right, so. So the next one was Harmon Knowles. And we want to refer to section 11. You know, same language, section 11, and it is on page 14. So it was section, so item B, capital B, uppercase B, item B on page 14. And the findings, the recommendation. Okay, moving on. Any other thoughts about that?
Nothing.
Artie will tell me if we don't have something that refers to a recommendation. And on page 10, with respect to Portola, that's gonna be item D as in David on page 15. D as in David. Not C. 15. Okay. Come to preview. And that will refer to Item C is in Charles on page 14.
I did have some comments on Seaview. There's a comment on the under zoning, Contra Costa map now lists property. Why the use of now lists? Did it change recently? Is that why it was noted as now?
No, the HEC
So
was
Contra-
what changed
Okay,
earlier this year, I think it was.
so what was it previously? Cause I feel like if you're gonna explain, if you're gonna give information that it recently changed, maybe you could provide some rationale for where, like what it was to what it is now.
Would it be clear if the word now was not there?
Correct,
I would
yes.
think- I would say so.
Yes, I would say for simplicity's sake, but I don't know if there was any real significance to why there was any, do we need it? Do we need to explain that it changed? I don't know.
No.
Okay,
Zoning changes.
right, it just said now, which is what struck
Yeah.
out.
No, I
to
think
me.
deleting now would solve that problem.
Solves it. And then also, could you add that is, to the south of baseball field? It's actually a county recreational facility. It also has like a rec building. And like picnic tables. So I think that explaining that it's like a county operated recreational facility gives a little bit more context to how it's being used.
Where are you referring to?
Property description to the south of our baseball fields.
Baseball fields, picnic tables?
Just say county recreation facility. I mean, it's, there, I mean, there's a community center and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we don't have to go into details about another piece of property.
No, we
Yeah,
don't,
no,
but in
I mean,
other slides.
County recreational facility, I think is.
Yeah, that's fine,
sufficient.
yeah, that's fine. Other ones show city park, for example, so just clarifying that it's a, a publicly run park that has amenities.
I guess the fact is, in the picture, you can see a baseball field.
Yes, that's correct. But there's also a little community center that's not in the picture, that's like just to the left of the edge. of
So
the
after
picture.
baseball fields and a community recreation?
No, I would say just county recreational facility, so, and to the south is a county recreational facility.
Anyone else have an opinion on that?
Keep looking at the paper instead of the screen. Nothing's changing here.
And then I did want a little bit of clarity too about the use of assumed density under opinion of value. Because it feels like we were told that there is already a zoning related to housing. So unless there's specific guidance on what that density looks like, why are we providing an assumption?
Well, at the last meeting, a couple meetings ago,
Yeah.
Maureen Toms gave us some very specific density data for this and for Adams.
Yeah, but that was based on really old records, right?
No, this is the very,
No.
very current
Uh-huh.
new density requirements as of this year.
So why is it, or why are we using the word assumed?
I didn't write it.
No, I mean, these are, I'm asking because we could just say, density could match the original parcel map. Like, I don't know, I just, the language is what's tripping me up a bit because it feels like it's, I don't know, I guess it's more suggestive than authoritative.
I think it's because it's an opinion of value.
They have to make us.
Okay.
when they're making-
So
Yeah,
there's-
right, so
Okay.
that was undergirding the, opinion of value,
Okay,
independent of Ms. Tom's presentation about what the county has done.
I'm sorry, just all of a sudden I'm reading this. Item number 2, assume density to match the original parcel map showing approximately 21 new homes.
yeah,
I said, Maureen gave us some very specific data on this, on what it's required. In fact, it's included in the minutes I just handed out. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was significantly more than 21. And I think that we need to put that just because that's what the county requirement is.
You're talking about the June minutes, the June 25 minutes, maybe July 16.
They all start blending together after a while.
Oh, okay.
May 7th.
No, would have been one of the June meetings, I believe. Or July,
Sure.
one of the two that I handed out.
25th. Hang on, let me look at the 25th. Okay,
Maybe it's maybe it's one with my email.
no. It's not in your minutes of the 25th. Looking, I'm looking at it. I don't
No,
see it.
it's probably the one I emailed. That was actually in our,
Right here, which is
Our
also
packet.
pointed out, is Stevie would have that 21 minutes or less. Right, so,
no. The density is 0 to 30 units per acre for a total of 0 to 274 units.
Yeah, right.
That's what Maureen said.
Meeting date,
What?
what was the meeting date for that?
that's June
June
11.
11. Yeah. But that's the new information from the county.
Okay.
With regards to the CVS.
But that doesn't relate to the opinion of value. Because the opinion of value is this other one. Is there another row on this table on the next page?
Yeah, because this is where the
Because the,
CCNRs,
Yeah, okay. So comparables.
I mean,
Um,
item number 2 is no longer valid. Because she even specified that the county will not enforce a CCR.
Yeah, but, we need to get the
Yes.
information into the table in some logical way.
Unless you add another cell below on page 32, add another cell.
so the update that she shared, would that belong in the zoning?
Well, it has to do with density. And
Right, so.
I mean, I don't know.
But
Right.
isn't that density allowed by the zoning?
Mhm. That's how it reads. to me.
What's, it's not so much allowed, it's required. Where she was describing it.
So that's why I'm wondering if we wanna add it, then maybe it belongs
A
here,
a
because,
superseding density or a superseding zoning by the county of Contra Costa placed density. Placed density and then repeat the numbers that Don.
0 to 274.
Could we also add this as a note somewhere that applies to say, this is the housing density requirements of, the HEC? And just leave it at that, like somewhere else in the document, not embedded into these comments, give a reference to where you can get more information about the housing density.
Oh.
Cause it would apply to more than one of our properties.
Well, because of the size of this property.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the numbers there had, I think, 0 to 30 units per acre, which would apply to others. But because of the size of this, it would be 0 to 274 units on that piece of property without, the easement to East Bay Regional Parks. She was very specific about that. Because they don't know exactly how much land can be involved. Where do you think it'd be appropriate, Melissa?
reference it in an appendix. I mean, I don't have a great recommendation. I definitely hear the, I think the concern from the committee is making sure that we're providing this very valuable information in the draft report. I always hesitate to provide information from another document approved by an agency in fear that I'm not providing all of the information. So I'm trying to think, we have the language in the meeting minutes. And I'm just trying to think, what is the best way to make reference to a requirement in another document within this report without just making the other report available?
We weren't provided with a document. It was a report by the deputy chief of planning for the county.
Right, but the
Yeah.
general plan, right, that's a document that
Mhm.
is approved and available.
The problem is that we have a conflict between the information that's not there and the information that is there.
I would, at the very least, remove that item 2 in the lower left-hand cell on page 31.
But then we're modifying an opinion of value that's not
Right.
our opinion. So,
Could there be an asterisk at the bottom of the opinion of value that says,
Independent of the county rezoning.
yeah, just something that refers to information given on this meeting may change the density, may allow for higher density.
mhm.
This is one of those cases where the old data that we received from 2 years ago was no longer valid.
Yeah.
And I would bet that actually that would affect the value of the property too. I mean, if you can only put 21 units on there as opposed to 274,
It's less appealing.
yes.
But I wonder if an asterisk takes care of it for now, and then like Melissa said, you put it in the appendix so that there's more up-to-date information.
When, put the information in the recommendations with respect to Seaview.
So,
Rather than try to crowd it in here. Zoning C,
The problem if you do that is, that's your value in your zoning information right there. And I don't think the value that, I think our recommendation was with that information. So if I'm a reader of the report, I'm gonna read there. Just like you've sort of been taking us through, then toggle to the recommendation.
Mhm.
And so you want that information up front.
Yeah, because somebody's gonna look at the table and not look past it on value.
Yeah, that's where my head is most of the time.
Well, then, so if there's an asterisk there, I think it's a very good idea. Indicating that the county, I think it would be, what, after 2, or,
Right,
or even just put a parenthetical, but maybe an asterisk, whatever. In some way indicating that the committee received information from a county representative that, I don't know if they call this into question. How do you want to phrase it in a way that doesn't sound like that?
Mhm. It's updated information that may allow for more flexibility.
There you
It is hard, right?
I would quote
Yeah.
the numbers.
Yeah, it is hard to get. the-
Well, but maybe
we-
putting the numbers where the chair was saying, on the description of CV later on. Or is that too late in the report?
I mean, we could just say up to, and then have the number there, like up to blank. I don't remember. what
Thirty
it
gonna
is.
say
0 to
zero.
274.
So it's like up to 274, yeah, so then,
Because I mean, sorry, if we're putting 21 here, we need to put the 274 in the
mhm,
same location, not 10 pages farther.
mhm.
when did we receive the updated information?
What was
May,
I was,
June 11th, because I wasn't here, June 11th.
11? Thank you.
I was in Maine.
remember one of the earlier conversations we had with, Terra Realty, but how easy is it to change the CCRs? We actually buy off the residents. And Maureen Thomas just says pretty much, no, we don't enforce them. She made it pretty simple and easy.
A lot of CCNRs are not enforceable.
Yeah, if you wanna build a saloon, I'm just kidding. Build a saloon at Adams.
Is the committee happy with the representation here?
I think it was
Yeah.
good, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy job when you just have to type what you hear, so.
I don't know that capturing all this is easy.
Um. So,
Page 13.
so that is to page 13. And for me, under item 11C, I put AY 2019 to 2020, continue to decline through AY 2023 to 2024, which brings us up to date.
I'm sorry, what dates, say it again?
So academic year, AY 2019-2020, that's the first blank. That was it was the high year for the district's enrollment according to the data.
All right.
And I'm gonna take a leap of faith and say, continue to decline through academic year 2023-2024.
So that's just right now, good. Everything's gonna get better,
The year that ended June 2024.
so it's all better now?
Well, you can't. Project, well, okay, you want 2024 to 2025.
No, I don't have a number. Didn't, when we were given the presentations,
and
didn't we
rather
have a
than-
projection?
So, yeah, we got a demographic projection. Which most of them.
That was Miss Mejia Hooper, so I'd have to go back and check. I don't know that on.
Okay. So. If you can, then
Yes.
make a note to verify the numbers, but, yeah.
March 26th was that meeting.
Right.
March
March
26th
26th.
was the enrollment data projection meeting discussions.
Right.
I have no idea if that says verify. Can somebody tell me? Is that what got
It
typed?
looks like it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on page 13?
I guess a question for, highest best use, second paragraph. The appraiser must make a determination of highest and best use. At this point, we're already assuming this is in the request for proposal process, right? Or is that, where in the process is this?
This is, we discussed this before.
So should we mention where this would be done? Because since we're talking about value on some other pages, now we have to get into actual appraisals. So at what point does that investment need to be made in the process?
See, these are legal definitions,
Yeah.
do we have any
So,
latitude to change the language on
Mr.
that?
Henderson, this is where you and I had an exchange in one of the earlier meetings about, are we obligated to stick to highest and best use? And said, no, they can do whatever they.
Ultimately, I don't know if I said it quite so cavvy, yes, there's,
Sorry.
yeah. That was the gist of what we had talked about, yes.
I'm not meaning to I'm simply asking, when the appraiser comes into the process, where does that start?
Well, he starts billing as soon as he gets in his car.
uh,
You know about that, don't you, Bill?
No.
But highest and best use, when I was doing appraisals, we always did highest and best use. So you're not being paid to come in below market, you're being paid to approach market value. You wanna get as close as you practically can.
So where in the process is the market value determined? Because we're giving an opinion of value, but to the point where you actually have to get an appraiser to give you
We're
market
not-
value.
We're not giving an opinion of value, we're reporting a realtor's estimate of value.
Right, so
That's
Is this
different from
actually
appraisal.
state, I think this is just the definition, right?
That's 100%. This is a definition of highest and best use. When the property is ultimately ever appraised, let's say the board determines they want to sell it, they will get a true appraisal. The appraiser will go to highest and best use. What I think we were exchanging about, because you were recollecting my memories, we were talking, is it required that the district hit highest and best use?
Yeah.
No, the
Yeah,
district could
yeah.
use what it needs to for a school or something else. Doesn't have to hit highest and best
I
use.
believe the phrase you used was community benefit. As a-
So
as a
you don't
reason
have
not to go
remembering
there.
me. I would not have remembered I said that, but
No,
that's.
I wrote the minutes, I
Oh, okay.
I spent the past 3 or 4 days looking at, listening to videos, 14, 15 hours a day. I remember that section. I even quoted you there.
That's unfortunate. But yes, this is intended to be a definition just for, if you will, educational purposes for the person reading the report. It is not binding on, frankly, this committee or the board.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on page 13?
What, 15?
They're on page 14.
Yeah, okay. No,
I-
no,
I had a comment in paragraph 1. Have we ever received an estimate, the last sentence, paragraph 1, these costs could be reallocated to fund facility needs on operational school campuses. That's in regards to the cost of maintaining these vacant sites.
sorry,
Where are you?
you on page 14?
Are you on?
Yeah, page 14, top paragraph, these costs could be reallocated to
Oh.
fund facility needs on
You said
operational.
one and that just threw my head.
The last sentence in the first paragraph. So have we ever received an estimated cost of what that, on an annual basis of what that looks like? Cause that would be good information to tie in here.
I read the whole thing.
If we spend a single penny on it, it's too much.
Sure, but it'd be nice to have an actual amount. Because in fact, that video you sent out and I watched, they asked the same question 5 years ago. What are the costs of maintaining these vacant facilities? They didn't have an answer then.
Yeah.
I am betting that changes from year to year. As we run out of money, we stop maintaining it.
Well, the only burden, if I read this, the only burden is Adams, because all the others are vacant land.
You got security costs.
We have had, it depends. So unfortunately, I was trying to think of how to give a more definitive answer, but it truly does. I mean, that is our property. We're responsible for our property. And so, the status of your facility and the status of your property changes all the time, right? And so we do have traditional things that you can anticipate, like, weed abatement, those types of management things, right? Proper fencing, proper security. But at any point, anything can happen to your property and you're responsible for your property and you're responsible for the things that happen on your property. And so we have to respond to those things as they happen and there can be vandalism. I mean, there's a number of things that you can't necessarily anticipate, but we have the responsibility for.
Sure, so what's that cost?
It depends on what
It's
happens.
moving target.
No,
Yeah.
but annually, if you had to give a percentage of what your facility maintenance costs are on vacant land, maybe not even just these sites, could you provide an estimate?
I could, but it would be, this is what it cost last year.
Mhm.
It would be a hard thing to predict going forward.
Sure,
Can
and
I provide a different perspective? When we provide that, then it can become gospel. And so if Melissa says, this is what it cost last year, then that could actually cause someone reading or trying to make a decision to go, that's not that much. We don't have to make this decision. And then something catastrophic could happen this year and it could be millions. And I think the purpose of this, more than the cost of what it costs when you're looking back, is the revenue we could generate moving forward. And so I fear if she puts something and then everyone wants to pin us down to it, it could create issues. And I wonder if the recommendations moving forward are really the meat of what we're trying to do.
Sure, but I also think in terms of a risk benefit analysis, we need to know how much of the sunken costs have been associated with these facilities to help us decide how to move forward.
But we already recommended how we're moving forward, right? We already have drafted recommendations to move forward. So that's not part of the decision making. The question is it compelling to another decision maker? And I would say, in my experience navigating the bureaucracy, which is pretty vast, it would be a big risk. It would be a distractor, and you don't want a distractor.
Melissa, do you even track on these sites what you spend on mowing the lawn, for instance? I mean, could you gather data? To say,
So it's not a simple report, because we have in-house services that we provide. So it's not always something that you can associate very simply to, here's a contract for those services. I'd have to compile data from a lot of places. And I still don't know that that would be the full cost.
I mean, I can imagine when you bring in a contractor to patch a fence, yeah, that's something you could track, but a weed abatement, mowing the lawn or mowing the weeds.
Well, and a lot of times, I mean,
In-house.
we have a fantastic maintenance team, right? And so work orders are issued, and so they're going out and doing that. And there's a way to calculate all of those things. I think part of the challenge is the cost of providing that data and the value of that data in this report. I do agree that there is considerable more cost and risk when you have a building than when you don't. But because I'm here every day, right, I'm immediately like thinking of things that have happened where we've needed to go and respond, and that is costs that we're spending on those sites, and thereby not spending on the other sites where we have our students and our staff.
But that's the whole point of section D in this paragraph, is cost to maintain these properties are a financial burden to the district. So being able to provide context to that by giving even a range, maybe we don't want to get married to a specific value, but giving a range to give context of what these costs look like.
I'm gonna try to bring this to a close because we are 32 minutes overtime at the moment.
Thank goodness we stuck around late.
We're almost done with this, and if I could get through it. So in accounting and in other things, when we're dealing with money and government and people's welfare, there's this issue of materiality. And are we discussing something that is truly material in the grand scope of everything that we're trying to do? To pin this down, which is a moving target, because demands vary year to year, depending upon events that go on, or to give some number and say, we estimate that costs are going to be blank. You know, I just feel like we're digging a hole for ourselves where we need not do it. So I understand your point, but we're not trying to free up money. Although we're saying we are.
We're talking about highest and best use.
Right.
Highest and best use in term related to what? All I'm saying is there needs to be some context here, because again, watching that video from 5 years ago from the school board, these were questions they had asked back then, and I'm not sure that we as a committee have been given this information at all when considering this, because again, we are not recommending Harmon Knolls a surplus. We still have to take care of that site. So if there are costs associated with maintaining that, that needs to be considered in our report.
But I think his Harmon Knolls is probably the one site that requires the least.
So then it should be
Yeah.
pretty simple to get an estimate of what it costs. And it may be not projected cost, but a history, right? The last 10 years, we spent X amount. Or, I mean, I'm understanding, but anyways,
yeah,
I'm not,
yeah,
I made my point. I'm just asking that we provide this information. If we decide not to, fine. But I think that this is context that needs to be included.
Ms. Payne,
Mhm.
how much effort would be required? Can you kind of estimate, knowing you're, first of all, you're doing 3 jobs. We haven't really addressed that, but she is doing 3 jobs. And she doesn't have a lot of staff. So do you have the resources to answer this question in a timely way before our next meeting?
Not in a timely way, but one of the things that I think I could do is maybe identify what some of those operational costs can be.
Yeah, maybe just listen.
And so then like an explanation
Okay.
of what makes up those costs instead of providing the actual dollars and cents. And hopefully that's a good compromise that
Yes.
addresses the concern, because I do want to do that. But I think it would take a considerable effort, and I don't have, all of the necessary resources right now to do that timely, but I could definitely expand and describe what those operational costs are for sites that are not being used.
So we're looking for a description of operational costs.
And that I can do,
Okay.
absolutely.
Just a suggestion, make sure there are no trees at Seaview, there's no trees at Porla. But earlier this year, there was a fallen tree at Harmon Knolls, and that cost a few bucks to chop or cut up and remove. I don't know if Adams really has any trees.
My
Anymore.
experience with parks that are unused or underutilized is that a lot of it is like sewer and irrigation issues that arise. Cracking cement. So these are all things that, yeah, maybe they're not being used, but these are things that need to be maintained. And there are costs associated with them that, we just pay it off and just forget about it. Just more taxpayer dollars throwing at a property that's not being used for anything, right? So I think having a context there is useful for these recommendations.
Okay. I'd like to move on.
Yes.
Item E has been deleted, but the numbering on the page.
I just updated that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anything else on page 14?
No.
I had a comment on B. Under recommendations to the board for, are we able to
For
list?
Harmon Knolls?
Yes. Are we able to list other options that are non-surplus here?
They decided a school or nothing.
Okay,
It's a school.
That was Ardo. That's his house, his baby.
And on the other side, you may recall that Hilltop is gonna develop between 5,000 and 7,100
it
units of housing.
was not approved. So all I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing. The board has recommended that recommendation, or the committee has made that recommendation. Everything else lists options, but we just discussed non-surplus options. So could we list those?
It was voted on school or nothing.
It says including a potential new school site. Okay, I'm
That's
just,
it. That was the
making
vote.
okay,
We couldn't get out of the room because Ardo was closest to the door.
Yeah, I have like 3 motions.
Okay, moving on to page 15, which is page 35.
So I do have a quick question. I'm sorry to interject. The
Okay.
bottom of page 14, I did my best to incorporate a comment that was in the meeting minutes on page 7, but I'm not sure if I properly placed the item.
What do you, Oh, sorry.
So in the meeting minutes, on page 7 that were adopted earlier in the meeting, it identified some of the edits. And so once I received those draft meeting minutes, I went into the report to try to make sure I had reflected everything in the minutes. So this was one of the recommendations from the meeting minutes on page 7, which was adding approximately 0.75 acres. And I just want to make sure I inserted this at the right place.
So, so the committee recommends the board consider options to utilize the CV site property consisting of 7.7 usable acres or a portion thereof, approximately 0.75 acres as for workforce housing, which may
Whoa.
be done. No, that's the,
No.
that's the,
Bay Trail.
that's the Bay Trail, that's the easement sought by East Bay Regional Park District.
So where would this like to go?
Well,
Well, it's down, yeah, that's item 4. Under CV.
yes,
You have it specific.
and you actually list the 0.75 acres.
I was trying to follow the meeting minutes, so I can remove that from
Yeah,
here, correct?
Yeah.
No, I agree, that's why I brought it up, but I didn't want to, not reflect the meeting minutes, so that was my interpretation. Great, I agree, because it didn't really make sense to me there.
Okay,
But you put it in anyway.
Well, I was trying to reflect the meeting minutes, so my apologies, thank you
Okay.
for clarifying.
All is good.
moving along, on page 15,
I'm good.
any comments? Congratulations. On page.
You said congratulations, there's nothing else.
Yes, there is.
Well, there is.
Yes, there is.
On page 17, there are 2 dates that are highlighted. Those were canceled meetings, were they not?
Highlighted.
That is correct.
Yes, they were,
Okay.
So,
and can I put in tonight?
yes,
And again, I've got a concern on the text below where it's referring you to a web page. Or
you're right. So just.
for all the meetings before March 5th.
So we're just gonna go back and say district website, period.
But we will be adding agendas and packets and minutes and everything else for the, 5 meetings that we had prior to March 5th?
Oh, let's see. 3.
Really? We didn't have
Yes.
5 meetings?
I went to the page, the web page. And listed, and it listed the meetings. I know that we sat down and we talked, but we didn't have business conducted.
No. But the number of minutes or meetings is not important, just include them.
Okay,
So if they didn't think God created the heavens and the earth on March 5th. Because that wasn't the case.
So what would you
no,
like me
I
to
have, we can go back. It's October 22nd of the 20th, 2022. February 28th, 2023, and September 13, 2022. So that's what's listed on the page. That's what I was counting.
Well, that's fine. I just want to make sure that they're included here. The dates are included here because we
Oh,
include
okay.
the packets and minutes and do not refer them.
What were the dates? I'm sorry.
Okay,
just that I
so,
can-
At the top, well, let me back up to it then. So, we have. Let's see, meeting agenda and a packet February 28th, 2023. I'm going back in time as we go.
I'm looking at the website right now with the dates.
And then October 20th, 2022. And before that, September 13th, 2022. And
July 28, 2022.
Yeah, July 28, 2022. Yeah, right. Okay, so what's our count now? Okay, going back to the number of meetings, so that's 4. That's 8, 12,
Yeah.
you get 13? Anyway,
As long as we include those dates and the information that goes along with them, I have no problem with leaving the reference to the webpage.
so, is there a motion to adopt the draft report as corrected?
I motion.
I second.
Okay. it's
You're
been
quick
moved
on
and
that?
Seconded, moved by Summer Sigler, seconded by Guadalupe and Lana, that,
Teamwork.
the draft report be adopted. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations to everyone concerned. I, would like, do we have, more on the agenda?
Yes, future meeting.
We have future meetings. So. When we were talking earlier. Melissa and I, we were looking at the calendar. Possible next meeting, Tuesday, October 8th. Or sooner.
Is this for a general meeting or public hearing?
No, committee
To approve the minutes.
to approve the minutes.
I have a calendar hold next week.
Well,
A whole,
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about it and I just wrote it in my calendar in case.
I don't recall ever discussing that.
It was a potential.
Yeah, the
for
potential
this
date.
meeting.
Okay.
Did I fall asleep that day?
So can we, I mean, is that even a?
Yeah, it's not a possibility for me.
Okay.
October 8th is not a
Oh,
possibility.
I'm sorry,
No,
no,
the
next week is not.
24th.
The 24th is not, but the 8th is possible.
That's a month from now.
Mr. Gossi?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, October 8th is okay with me. I thought you were still throwing the
Yeah,
dates
that's
out.
What, no, never mind, I can't. Sorry, just saw something, I can't.
What about the first?
We can make the first. Yes,
Which,
10-1?
oops, damn it.
That's 1 week prior.
That's 2 weeks from tonight.
Everybody nods.
yes.
I got a city council across town that is doing all kinds of things. They see Don's not here. We can get away with murder tonight.
You know,
Okay, so you can't, the date,
so 10,
on the first?
What?
Yes.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, so we can't that day?
October 1st,
no,
yes.
no,
I
I
didn't-
said
I said-
it's okay.
Okay.
I'll make it work.
Nodding,
I'm blowing off half a dozen.
watching the body language.
I'm just-
So 10-1,
Yeah,
10-1,
yeah, tell him something.
on this side of the table?
Sounds great.
10-1. Okay. Without objection, our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 1st of October.
Motion to adjourn?
It's always in order.
Huh?
You guys, you guys
Okay,
stuck
how
here.
about a
You-
last
We
comment,
can
because
get this
since
out.
we're meeting
That's why I
on the-
said motion to adjourn.
I'm like, one last comment, since we're meeting on the first, my birthday's on the 5th, so you guys are welcome to
good.
bring cake.
Oh, good, all right.
Mine's on the 4th.
Oh, see, now you look, double celebration.
Was there a second to my motion to adjourn?
Second, let's go.
Come on. Without objection. Meeting is adjourned at 8:48.
All right, sorry
Thank you
everyone
all
for
very
making us wait, but I think it's better than coming back again, right?
Yeah, so thank you.
Still on.